Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth season of Conversations in the Future of Work. I am your host, Rachel Kosser, co-founder and CEO at Virtual Sapiens. Now, the world's been changing at an alarmingly rapid pace, and I thought that it would be very appropriate to have one of the true technology evangelists and innovators in the sales space join us for our first episode. So, on how to drive true innovation and not be a sheep, I'd love to introduce Mary Shea. Mary, over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great to be with you today, and it's great to connect with your audience. So as Rachel mentioned, my name is Mary Shea, and I've done many things in my professional life, but I'll just share a few of them with you now. I'm working for a very interesting company called Higher Quotient. It's an AI-first company, software, and we do what many of my companies have done in the past for sellers and marketers, but we're focused on the HR professional. And so we use automation and AI to help recruiters, folks that are in talent acquisition, quickly source, rate and rank candidates and communicate with them in a multi-channel workflow. And so I'm looking after all of our business in North America. And prior to that, Rachel alluded to the fact that I've been an evangelist. So I've been an evangelist at Outreach, which is a unicorn based in Seattle that focuses on sales execution. And I also was a Forrester analyst for many years. So I think that will bring us back to maybe making some predictions about the future, Rachel, or where things are going from a tech perspective. But it's great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Awesome, Mary. Thank you so much for joining. So first question. I mean, innovation is obviously happening all over the place and all the time, but there's also a lot of following. And I'm just curious to hear how do you define and find true innovation in such a busy, noisy space?
Yeah, it's that's such a great question and a thoughtful question. From my time as being an analyst at Forrester, and I was there for about 7 years, and I followed the sales tech and marketing tech landscape, and I really focused on the future of work, future of buying and selling in the business world, and I learned how to connect the dots with what's happening today and envision what's going to happen in the future. And so I think I have a sort of a sense anyway, but finding the methodology that we had at Forrester really helped me be a provocateur and to put a stake in the ground on where I think things are going. And oftentimes you're not right, but you provoke interesting discussion. And so that's, I think, really interesting. I don't think I answered your question at all. So where you find innovation, you can find it anywhere. You can find it, in new and innovative go-to-market strategies. You can find it in product innovation. You can find it in ecosystem partnerships. You can find it in, what have I missed, Rachel? A range of different things. And so I'm always on the hunt for it because I'm just not excited to get up and go to work to get every day unless I'm sort of at the tip of that spear. And I love creating versus just sort of operationalizing someone else's playbook. And so that's where I try to find myself in places where I can create and help set up the systems and processes for those that are going to come behind me.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I love your point about like the innovation can be found also within like benign or seemingly rote processes, right? Like I think there's such an emphasis on like the product and product innovation and technology innovation. But like what about process innovation? Like that's actually really interesting
totally. Process innovation. So, we have our workflows and our processes that every functional area of the business typically owns and refines over time. And now, you can see our company as well as many others out there that are taking some of the traditional workflows and automating them and enhancing them with proprietary and commercially available AI models. So you can innovate your process in the sense of you can streamline your processes, you can add tech to your processes, you can do a range of different things. And I agree with you. I think we think about innovation too narrowly. Immediately we go straight to product. But there's so many different ways to innovate, and you can innovate at so many different types of businesses. Those can be retail establishments to big tech and everything in between, right? And we're seeing the world change, and you used a word called alarming, and I'm going to I'll play the devil's advocate and call it exciting, but things are changing very, very quickly. And you're right. If we're not on top of it, and by on top of it, I mean educating ourselves, learning, doing new things, trying some of these new tech, we're rapidly falling behind. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot at Virtual Sapiens, because we were ahead of the curve in a lot of this, like video AI analytics and stuff, and
Right.
now we have to be careful because it's very easy now to just grab what OpenAI is doing and become a wrapper around OpenAI, and that's
Right.
fine. But I don't think that's going to cut it from like a competitive edge and moat perspective, right? So I'm always like, how do we just be wary of not falling into some of these traps of convenience, and how do we continue to innovate, ourselves?
Right. That's such a great point. And I think we're seeing it now. And I'm not going to point out any company names, but you're seeing some of these unicorns from the 2019, 2020 really struggling for a range of different reasons. Right. It's been a tough macroeconomic environment. Buying patterns are changing. You're seeing layoffs and all kinds of different types of things. Buying cycles are longer. You need more ROI before you can pull the trigger. But one of the interesting things is that some of these unicorns actually don't have a defensible moat now that ChatGPT is launched, and now that companies can spin up their own proprietary AI. And so that's a very, very interesting question. And what we've seen is, I'm almost calling this like a third wave of upstarts, right? So, you've got late stage startups that are technology. You've got big tech, right? Then you've got late stage startups that are the unicorns. Then you've got some established companies that haven't quite, made the valuation you want. Now you have the walking zombies, right? The ones that have a big customer base, but they can't grow. And so what do we do there? Well, now there's this really interesting collection of companies that I'm noticing, and some of them are actually being started by my friends, which is exciting, that are like this upstart 3.0. And I think in some ways they may have more advantage than the later stage startups who actually went to market, got valuations on a certain expectation. And now, honestly, I don't want to say anyone can spin up a cadence tool, but I think anyone can spin up a cadence tool. So why would you buy the Porsche when you could either spin it up yourself or get it from a lower cost provider? So it's a very interesting time. And I'm glad you're thinking about that. And if I could be so bold to put a question back on you, because we haven't spoken in a little while, what are you doing to make sure Virtual Sapiens has that moat and has that relevancy in a world where tech is becoming more and more available to a wider collection of people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so one of the things that we found interestingly from the beginning, as we came out of the gates with such a strong focus and level of nuance around our nonverbal behavioral analytics. Right. And that is something that we have found continues to be very defensible, because we've developed a framework and a methodology around what our AI is looking for, why it's important, and how important it is for professionals. So by continuing to invest in the behavioral analytics components, we get to continue to just differentiate ourselves. So that's been really cool.
Okay.
But we do have to be careful. Like we have to make sure that we're being very clear about our use case. And I think that we are going to have to gain some competitive edge and innovation around, the numbers of people that we are accessing and targeting and working with, right? Because I think at this point, actually, customer acquisition is more important than ever.
Really is. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's interesting. And that makes sense knowing your business. My latest obsession is on go-to-market innovation. And because I think you're going to find, and we just saw, a very well-known tech company let go 7,000 people this week. Yep. We're finding that sales teams are going to be smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So that means not only do you need to acquire the right talent at the upfront, but then you're going to need to enable them with the right tools and then right tech. And then you're going to have to continue to develop and train them so that they'll stay and retain. And you're going to have to create different structures within the go-to-market organization that will allow you to be super agile, do more with less, and drive home customer obsession. So that might be another podcast, but I just thought I'd share my recent my recent obsession there.
Yeah, totally. So moving on to the next question, because it's in line with what you just shared, but what are some of the trends that you think will actually stick?
Oh, well, I'm sure the Chancy from Amazon won't be so happy with me, but I really think that hybrid work and remote work and flexible work is here to stay. I think the cat is out of the bag, and despite CEO egos or the fact that a lot of money was spent building a beautiful headquarters, that there's the flexibility that we enjoyed in life over COVID. And the fact that we have we're not machines, right? We partner and augment ourselves with machines. But look, I have an elderly parent. I have to go to take her to the cardiologist. Well, people who are 90 don't move quickly. So, I have to step out of the office. People have young children. And so I just think that that's a losing proposition for some of these companies. And I know it's very popular in financial services as well. But I think whether wherever you are in your career, people are going to demand that level of flexibility. Other things that I think will stick, some things that haven't really even begun yet that I would think will happen. We will have a 3 to 4 day work week in under 5 years. When you think about the amount of scale and muscle that generative AI gives you and powerful automation give you, you are going to get a 7-day week done in 3 to 4 days. And then the other thing is, I think we will have smaller workforces. So, we will have to take some sort of look at universal basic income. And I know that's probably a little ways away, but we're in the midst of a very, very big beginning transformation of how we work. And I think if I were to use a baseball analogy, we're in inning 1, really, but that game's moving a lot faster than typical baseball games move.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to this other question. And I think you've hinted at some of the exciting things that we can think about in terms of technology disrupting and all this innovation, but at the same time, there are some concerns, right? So how do you stay positive when you're thinking about some of this exciting change, as you mentioned?
Yeah, so exciting or alarming, depending on where you are at the moment, any given moment. And look, the way I think about it is broadly. We've had technological innovation for quite some time now. You could go back to the Stone Age and start talking about tools and farming techniques and a range of different things, and then massively big changes in the Industrial Revolution. And I think I was talking about, electricity came, and then you didn't have to worry about the kerosene lamp burning down the whole town, which seemed to happen quite a lot before we had electricity. And yet you can electrocute yourself, if you don't handle it correctly. So with some of these sweeping technological changes, and I would say generative AI certainly fits into that category, there's trade-offs, there's positives, and there's negatives. And I think we've all seen far too well what the negatives are with social media, misinformation, disinformation, things of that nature that have come to bear recently. And it's smart to be thoughtful and considerate. And, we all need to stay educated and get involved in some of the decision making. When you think about generative AI, a lot of folks think about biases. And honestly, it's the big tech CEOs that are in the back room kind of making a lot of those decisions. And depending on what happens in November, and I'm not going to go to a bad place, but, all kinds of different things can happen. And so my recommendations to folks are, educate yourself, stay involved, insert yourself into the conversation. If you see something that's wrong, say something, right? But the essence of your question was, how do I stay positive? Because I actually am an optimist, and I'm very excited. I use generative AI every day to do my job. Things that would take a week now take a day. Things that would take a couple of days now take half a day. Things that could take hours now take minutes. Yeah. And, so on and so forth. So it's super exciting. I think I stay positive because I hope that this technology will provide a better quality of life for us. I think that we will work 3 days a week or 4 days a week. We'll have more time for other things in life that aren't just work. I know that's what Americans have been focused on for so many years. We'll have more time for hobbies, more time for education. And oh, by the way, some of the very sticky wicket problems that we can't solve, that the human mind has not been able to solve, climate crisis, poverty, other things, I do think that technology will help us potentially get to some solutions faster. So, it's a healthy skepticism and, approach it in a smart and appropriate way.
Yeah, I think I have been having such philosophical conversations recently for a variety of reasons. But one of the things I know to be true is that as like our universe does tend towards entropy, right? And so we have to, and companies tend towards entropy, technology tends towards entropy, and you have to get in there and make sure that everything's staying together, that there are no bugs that have like crept into the code and things like that. And I think what you're saying to an extent is that so long as humans, we stay present and we continue to critically evaluate things and we don't just kind of sit back and let things flow, we can ensure that some of those positive outcomes are happening.
I completely agree with you. And I think that's absolutely right, which is to stay involved. And, we have this wonderful technology at Higher Quotient, but it's really designed to augment what the talent acquisition provider, professional does on their own. Mm-hmm. And you're working really closely with the technology. You're not sort of just like letting it just go do its bot thing with other bots. Yeah. And that's where we get into trouble, right? When there isn't the human component, because the machines are great what the machines do. They handle the administrative stuff, the manual stuff, someone said to me, oh, it's all the dirty work that we don't really want to do. Yeah, that's just the stuff that they're really great at, the heavy lifting, and they can do it in seconds.
Yeah.
But there's stuff that we're great at as humans that the machines are never going to replace. And so we do need to stay very involved and very vigilant.
Yeah. Awesome. So switching tracks a little bit here. Sure. I'm always curious. So we have so many guests on the show who have these really unique, interesting backgrounds, and you're one of them. So how do you find your experience in music as a musician has supported you throughout your career?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you for asking. I don't always get to talk about it, but I do think it's very, very much there, very much instrumental, so to speak, in the background. I also have a PhD in musicology and ethnomusicology. So I have not only the discipline of learning to play an instrument at an elite level, but also doing the research and writing extensively. So I would say, as a business leader, I think there's a element of creativity and fluidity, creative problem solving. I don't feel like I'm left-brained or right-brained. I feel like I flow back and forth between both. I love the collaboration in the business world that I loved in the orchestra, right? You have your principal oboe, your principal flutes, you have your people who run the woodwind section, the brass section. We have the same thing in business. And so, it's about really getting in sync and getting in flow and enlisting and inspiring people in the business world. It's not terribly dissimilar. Mm-hmm. And then, and you know this because you've performed at an elite level, it's about, when the hard knocks hit, someone who's been through the arts, you get hard knocks every day. You go to an audition, there's 100 other people and you're not necessarily going to get it, but you've got to pick yourself up every day and you continue to press forward. And having the resilience that it takes to be a musician or an artist and applying that in the business world, nothing really deters me. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple of things. But thank you for asking. It's always nice to harken back to my previous profession.
Yeah, totally. And I think you hit on something that I do think is relevant for like anyone who's going through a transition or change. And there are these foundational skills that you develop going through anything at a high level, right? And whereas I used to get this all the time, having left the world of ballet, just being like, wow, like ballet, and then now CEO of an AI company, like that's
It's not that strange, actually. I mean, it sounds strange initially, but you're on, when you're a musician or you dance at that level, you're on stage. It's a performance. And when you're a CEO, you're on stage. Like, you're out there building brand equity like we're doing today. You're getting people excited about your vision for the future, and you're trying to bring them along with you. And so, having the ability to communicate as you do, both verbally as well as with the body language. And it's about influencing and engaging and bringing people along for the journey. And I think artists and performers know how to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, couldn't agree more, Mary. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally. Well, listen, thank you. I know it'll be interesting to see how this all edits together.
I hope it edits okay. It might be a little bit chunky, but at least we're going to look like the same people.
No, it'll be great. Honestly, I'm just going to share with our viewers, but we had a little,
we had some blips
in the armor halfway through. So, but here we are finishing it out. And Mary, thank you so much. Yeah. You are such a champion of what we do at Virtual Sapiens. I really value your opinion, your expertise, and your insights.
So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, where can people follow more of your work?
Yeah. So I'm very accessible. I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to DM me or request to connect. And I can be reached at Higher Quotient at Mary@higherquotient.com, and I'll always respond. So let me know what you're thinking.
Awesome. Great. And as always, thank you for tuning in.